everybody. I'm Lorcana, and I'm here with.
Hey, it's Ducky. What's
Hi,
up?
hi, Ducky. How are you today?
You doing pretty good? How you doing?
Good. Are we ready to talk about set six?
Yeah, sure. Ready?
Okay. So tomorrow is the new set release too. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty excited as well too. Been doing some testing and just honestly ready to play the new set.
Are
I
you
think it's gonna be
liking Lorcanita?
Lorcanito.
Yeah.
It's reasonable enough. I think that it's just like kind of what we need right now because just like having any simulator to practice on and being able to take things back, honestly pretty good. So I've been pretty happy with it.
I actually haven't tried it yet, but I think I might like start trying it like this weekend
Yeah,
because
it's a good
like
tool.
I haven't had any like play testing in forever. It's like that
Um,
weird time between like locals are kind of slow because everybody's waiting for the new set, and then there's really no DLCs or set champs yet.
Yeah, I do think that the round of like continental qualifiers are going to kick things up, as well as continentals are going to be pretty spicy as well too. The set six looks to be a complete meta changer.
I agree. There's so many different cards, and we only got through two colors, yes, on 2 days ago.
Mhm.
Hi, Prince All. Thanks for coming on. Okay, so let's start with Jasmine. She's a 3 drop, 2 attack, 3 defense. And this is definitely a pumpkin spice latte type card. There's a lot of effects with her. I haven't forgot about that.
Oh, um, Jesus. You can see me right now. I have my palms in my face. But yes. So Jasmine, she's pretty good. She's a hero and a princess, two very relevant tags, but mainly she's going to be a shift body for the legendary Jasmine, as well as it has a bunch of really interesting abilities. Exerting chosen damage character and reckless are all pretty powerful abilities because like as you can see with like Lyle, for example, giving something reckless is very, very strong. Um,
Oh, I agree. And I think that that's going to really hurt the aggro decks.
um, so the thing is like I think the shift line is a little bit slow for aggro.
Okay.
Because I think aggro's going to be relatively fast and resilient. So I'm not super sure about her being like super duper viable because I think you'd rather use Morph for the most part. But Morph is more fragile of a body than Jasmine is. And Jasmine does have some like utility later on. So who knows?
Ben is in our chat, and he's saying that this is a bad card.
Yeah, it probably is, but I can see some niche interactions if you're really trying to build around that Jasmine synergy. But outside of that, I kind of agree.
So then we have Captain Hook. While this
Okay.
character is exerted, opposing pirate characters can't quest.
So,
Piglet.
I
This is
think the
like,
first ability is not super relevant, but I think what's most relevant about Captain Hook is his tags. So, Pirate and Captain are really, really strong this set, mostly because there's a lot of like interesting pirate synergies. I talked about this before in the last one, but I think
yeah.
pirates are actually kind of good this set. If you take a look at well, later, take a look later on, but especially Captain Daisy Duck. Anything with a pirate tag is going to be relatively strong and worth looking at. This while this character is challenged, draw a card. That's also pretty nice as well too. Just having a little bit of extra card draw in an archetype that probably won't get as much card draw is quite good. And a quest for two, and most of the pirates in this new set are relatively aggressive as well. So I do think that Captain Hook is worth looking at the very least in some sort of pirate archetype.
So now, why don't you think that like when this character is exerted, the opposing pirate characters can't quest? This really hurts the Piglet card because Piglet
It
won't be able
does.
to quest.
Yeah, but it's also relatively slow in stopping Piglet. And I guess this card could be good for the pirate mirrors. Um, like if you're playing like pirates versus pirates. But I think that the just in general, this effect is going to be relatively narrow. Your opponents are most likely not going to be playing a lot of pirates for the most part.
Then we have the Stitch Pirate, Alien Buccaneer,
Okay, so this is a
Shift
four
Type.
drop, shift three. It's got hero and pirate, which are very relevant tags. When you play this character, it puts an action on top, which is not as good as you want it to be. Because if it went to your hand, it'd be much stronger because it'd be a +1 when you're shifting. But there's not really going to be a lot of utility behind this card. It's also uninkable, and it's going to eat into your uninkable slots. Pirates is going to be an incredibly uninkable friend. Well, it's going to have a lot of uninkables in it. So you have to really consider what you are playing as in your uninkable slots, and I don't know if Stitch is going to fit in that archetype. So I think this card's actually relatively bad, even though it has the pirate tag.
Okay. Oh, this is so bad. So then we have Go Tamo. Yeah, that card.
Yeah.
How did you say it?
Go Tamago.
Go Tamago.
Yeah. Tamago is literally egg in Japanese. So this looks like to be a pretty aggressive card. So this is along the trend of cards that I'm seeing that are sort of speeding up the game. This can be a lot of burn damage in the late game and is a relatively good evasive body early. I'm a little bit hesitant because I actually think that 4 is quite a bit for this particular effect. In contrast to something like Go, this is relatively strong, but I think in comparison to all the different tools that you're getting in the new set, I don't think this card is going to be as strong, but I can see it having a lot of usage for sort of like late game finishing strats. So if you can rack up a bunch of damage, then I think this card can be relatively good. But if you aren't a devoted strategy towards that, I don't necessarily know if this card is going to fit in those archetypes.
I think this could be possibly good for my fully evasive deck.
Yeah. It's a good finisher at the very least. Generally, evasive is really good at racking up damage on things, especially against other evasive creatures. It should be fine, I think.
And even Ben said that it at least at minimum takes out Diablo because they're both evasive.
Yes, and
or it checks
no.
Diablo. It checks.
Yeah.
Diablo.
So the problem with Diablo is that like Diablo also usually gets backed up with a bunch of like support. So usually it's supported by like either removal spells or Cove. Usually like a 2/2 is not going to be enough to beat Diablo consistently enough. And Diablo can do things like just not even attacking something like this. It also comes down faster than Go Tamago on the draw. So that's also something to consider.
Then we have Honey Lemon.
Cool. So another card with Kicker, which is the ability to pay extra ink into it. When you play this character, you can pay an extra 2 to discard a card. It could probably go in some like aggressive discard archetypes, but actually this card has the potential to be decent if you can protect this card.
It's only a 1/1. It's going to be pretty hard to protect it, even though it's like not evasive or not, and it doesn't have ward.
Yeah, I can see like Bodyguard being pretty good with this. It can also just be a role player later on where you can just use it to discard a card. The fact that it's inkable and a discard outlet, honestly, like it's not that bad. I actually think this card can see play in like some sort of like green steel shell or some other like green X discard deck.
Is there any green bodyguards?
No, but there's a lot of them in steel, and I can see this being in like a green steel archetype, for example.
Then we have Fred, which might be one of the scarier cards. Gain 2 lore.
Yeah.
It's like a better Baloo.
Yeah, I don't know. I think this card's like pretty strong. This has a relatively strong effect of like when it's being challenged, you gain 2 lore. This can actually rack up damage quite quickly and can be a decent role player in aggressive decks that are green.
And then, oh, I love this card. Toodles. It's so cute.
Yeah, just your regular 2/2. It doesn't have very good
Vanilla.
tags as well too. There's not much to write about this one.
This is like your regular vanilla card.
Yeah, this is just your regular draft chaff.
And then we have Dawson.
Yeah, another
Vanilla.
just like regular common. This is a normal stat line, 4 for 3, 4 quest for 2. Like, you normally want to have abilities on a card like this, but this is a common. It's going to be one of your really cool ones.
Heathcliff.
Heathcliff.
His ward. Heathcliff.
So this is 4 mana 3/3, quest for 2, and it has ward. Ward is generally a very strong ability. I I do kind of like this card, but I also think that it is it's going to have a little bit of narrow use. Ward is just in general really strong. So even though it doesn't really do anything, I could see this having some sort of application down the line in like some sort of like aggressive deck.
Okay. I like that it quests for 2.
Yeah, it quests for 2. I wish it had a bigger body, but you know, Ward is a pretty good ability. So you never know when something like this might come up.
And then we have Basil, an evasive.
Yeah, it's 3 ink, quest for 1, evasive. This is more of a defensive card. We've seen cards like this in other colors, and it hasn't seen a lot of play. It is a hero, and it is a Basil, which does have applications. Like,
Especially in like the hero deck.
You can shift this up into the new Basil. We'll cross that that ballpark later. But in general, like it's a pretty decent body. It does the job.
And then we have Donald Duck, first mate.
Yep. So this is actually one of the reasons why you would want to play Pirates in like green, for example. This card reminds me a lot of Piglet. It doesn't necessarily cost 2, but you don't need to have as much commitment onto the board. And there's a lot of really good captains out there that are also pirates.
Piglet.
Yeah, this is basically another Piglet.
Yeah.
It is slightly more expensive, but at the same time, it's a little bit tankier, and it does have a lot of synergies because it has the pirate tag. So I would keep an eye on this card as well too. This card is quite strong, I think.
Oh, this card is making me want to change to yellow-green right now.
Yeah. So I don't know what the exact shell is for pirates. I think that red green, green steel, yellow green, and red yellow are all viable shells for pirates because those are the colors that pirates are typically centralized around. So for me, red yellow or red green are probably my top 2. Playing around like Donald Duck, for example, feels really strong.
And then we have the Daisy Duck that you were talking about. When one of your pirate characters quest while at a location, draw a card.
Okay, I personally think this card is nuts. This card says my 3 favorite words, which is draw a card. But also, it turns every single pirate that is trying to quest, which all of them kind of really want to be aggressive. They allow you to draw and refill back up. So this is like one of your best card draw engines in green currently. And it does force you to play a lot of subpar cards, but if you take a look at a lot of pirates pound for pound are quite efficient, especially when they have their pirate synergies turned on. So I actually think that it's actually really easy to get this on. One of the biggest cards that you want to pair with this Daisy Duck is Jolly Roger. The ability to be able to basically equip the Jolly Roger for 0 and being able to quest out and gain a lot of advantage very, very quickly is incredibly strong in Daisy Duck. You also have a lot of like random location synergies within pirates because of Minnie Mouse and whatnot. So in general, like you have a very strong shell around this particular card, and being able to draw like 2 cards a turn that you play this on turn 4 is not unreasonable in a lot of games.
Oh, I like this card too.
Yeah, this card's pretty nutty.
And then we have Myrtle Edmonds from Lilo and Stitch.
Yep, not much to write home about. So
Yeah.
it's just a 1/3.
She's a vanilla.
Yep.
And then we have Prince Philip.
Okay. I can see this being better than Heathcliff. Ward in general is going to be really strong. This is actually a much better stat line. 3/4/3/2 plus for 2. It has Hero and Princess tags as well too. I don't know if Prince is going to be as relevant, but I can see Hero being pretty decent. I think this card's pretty good.
Okay. And then we have Jasmine Legendary.
Okay.
Ooh.
So
Just so you know, Ducky, Ben said that Prince Philip is a shift target for the 9-drop one.
Yeah, I don't know how relevant that's going to be. Mostly because I think that the 9-drop Prince Philip is going to be a little bit slow for this format. But I do think that 3/2 Ward Body that costs for 2 is just by itself going to be better than the shift target uh, in general.
And then
I
yeah,
can
we
see you
have
also doing like maybe some like Hades shenanigans with that, but in general, I don't necessarily like shifting up into big Prince Philip.
Hades
Sorry.
shenanigans. And then we have Jasmine.
Cool. So this is one of the new legendaries of the set. This is she shifts 5. When you play this character, you can return all exerted characters to uh, their player's hands. I think this card has the potential to be decent, but you really have to work around it. Hero and Princess are relatively good tags. I'm going to keep talking about tags in general, mostly because there's going to be a lot of like relevant like Hero and Princess synergies uh, that you can pair it with. Like for example, I can see like Anna plus Jasmine being like a pretty solid core, especially since you have some decent blue Jasmines as well. Um,
Ooh.
yeah. Uh, I think that the format is going to be relatively fast, so being able to shift this on turn 5 is going to be relatively strong. But if you don't shift this, it basically does nothing. So it is a 2-card combo, and it does take a little bit of setup to get there. It is green, and it does have morph synergies, so there might be something there. But in general, I think this card has a lot of opportunity costs. Like you could be playing Clarabelle instead.
And then we have Peter Pan. Okay, I
Okay.
don't really like that it enters play exerted.
Well, it's so that it can do its job of being able to protect your lore. So, like, if you look at the second ability, while this character is exerted, each opposing character can't gain lore unless one of the characters is challenged. So, if somebody slams this against you relatively early, I think that most decks are going to have a lot of trouble dealing with this card. Although you only have to challenge it into it once, so it'll probably like eat a guy, and then your opponent will be able to quest out afterwards. Um,
But it's not a
I
shift
don't know.
target, so you have to wait all 7.
Yeah. I want this card to be good, but I don't think it will be. It doesn't necessarily. I think it's just going to be a hair too slow, and it does stop a lot of the burn damage later on. But you can just challenge once into it, and usually, like green X decks don't have a good way of dealing with like wide board presences. So I want this card to be good, but it's just going to be worse than a card like John Silver, for example.
And then there's Hercules, baby Hercules. Oh.
Cool. So this is a 6-mana 6/3 that's uninkable. It does have a good ability in Ward. Like Ward's very strong. However, Hercules isn't very tanky, and its ability is actually really expensive to get off.
It costs 9 at that point.
Yeah, yeah. It costs 9 for the first proc. It's just going to be really, really expensive. I don't think this card's going to have that. There's a lot of better cards than this, and I'd much prefer to play something like Jasmine over Hercules, for example.
Then we have Alistar Curry.
Alright, so Alistair is going to be a relatively narrow card. It's going to require an opponent to have items in play, and I don't know how good items are going to be next set. If we are thinking that old school red-blue is going to be around still, then maybe this could be an interesting tech card, but I would rather just play removal or other burn cards like Gogo Tamaga, for example.
This might make like red blue not existent anymore.
I think that there are a lot of cards that are going to make red blue not exist anymore, but I don't think this card is going to be it.
Okay.
It's just too narrow, and it has not enough applications against a lot of other matchups. We want cards that are good against basically everything, and this is only good against items, unfortunately.
Then we have Gazelle.
Okay, so Gazelle is interesting, mostly because it actually gives you a pretty cheap way to contest cards like Diablo. If you are doing a Diablo War thing, I can see Gazelle like being an interesting tech choice over, say, like a Tinkerbell. Just like having access to something cheaper and more accessible. But if you don't need the jump ability, then actually just protecting one of your characters and being able to quest in with it can also have some sort of utility as well. So maybe in an aggressive deck, or maybe like paired with like the 2-drop like Amber Lilo could be somewhat interesting. But there's some
Ooh.
uses for this, like niche uses for this card.
And then there's Goofy.
Okay. So Goofy, I think, is quite good. Actually reminds me of an inkable like set one Cusco. This card is it's going to guarantee going to be able to quest in for 3, and when it quests, it gives one of your additional your other characters an ability as well too. So those two abilities together are relatively strong. I think there's going to be a home for Goofy. We'll have to see where it is.
Okay, I kind of like this card too.
Yeah.
I might be leaning more towards making a Ward deck now.
Yeah, I do think that Ward is a very strong ability. So playing around that ability can be quite strong.
Then we have Bellwether.
Okay, so during their turn, whenever you ink something, this is part of the inking cycle. You give something reckless. I'm personally somebody who really likes the keyword reckless. So I'm actually going to
Draw a card and Reckless. You got a lot of likes.
Yes, I mean, I like a whole bunch of different cards, but I think that Reckless is an ability that is oftentimes slept on because a lot of players just either can't utilize it well or don't know how to set up situations where you can just absolutely show your opponent the business. So I'm going to keep an eye on this card. This does have an opportunity cost with Lyle. I do think Lyle's slightly better in this format, but I could see a case in which Bellwether's going to be really strong.
Ooh, okay. Moving right along, we got another Basil.
Yeah, so I noticed that Basil, when it was first spoiled, a lot of people went up to me and went like, "Hey, this can go into Baja Blast. Like, this seems pretty good." I think that currently there's card draw is too free, and questing is too free. So a card like this is going to be really good at grinding your opponents out of the game, but I don't necessarily know that's what you want to be doing in this format. If the format does slow down and grindy games become more of a thing, this card could be relatively okay. But for the most part, I don't see this card being as strong. You don't have that great of a shift target. The body's not as good, and it does eat up a lot of your ink as well. So, like, let's say you play this in a blue-green shell, you still have to figure out a way to stabilize in this format.
Then we have Olivia Flaversham Vanilla, but quest for 3. This reminds me of the Pinocchio card.
This is basically just Pinocchio.
Yeah.
So if there's a green aggressive deck that wants a body like this, I could see this card being relatively strong.
For like green aggro.
It's going to be niche though.
For like green aggro.
Yeah, I could also see you pairing it like later on late game with like Goofy. So you go like play Goofy and then untap. Play Olivia, quest with Goofy, and protect the Olivia, and you actually have a lot of questing pressure on board. So there could be something here.
Okay, this next.
It doesn't have any other good tags though.
True. Okay, this next card is so scary.
Yep. Benjamin is quite scary.
So scary.
Yeah, if the format slows down, I think this card's pretty strong. If you can actually stabilize the board and cast this card, this is quite strong.
Like
the main question is if you can get to 7.
Or like they have to put a Prince John down, then they get to refill your hand while you have no hand.
Yeah.
This card is scary.
Yeah, so the question is the format going to be fast enough to be able to erase this card for the most part? Because this does discard the hand, but doesn't necessarily affect the board. But 7 might be a hard ask. Are you going to ramp into it? Are you going to maybe play like Starlight Vial, for example, to be able to cheat on the cost? That's very hard to say. And like if you're spending time like Starlight Vialing and not actually playing to the board, you're just going to get wrecked by a very, very strong curve out. Like, 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 3-on-3, 4-on-4, so on and so forth.
Okay. Then we have Prepare the Board.
Yeah, so here's another Pirate Synergy card. Giving plus power actually seems pretty good in this format because there's a lot of location support. So locations might make a pretty good comeback, especially since there's a lot of locations that can equip for free. I'm mostly thinking Pirate Ship and Sugar Rush Speedway starting line. Being able to bust down like cards can be good, but I think there's better ways to get the plus power in green and like say maybe like red or steel.
Okay. Then we have. I don't think I can pronounce this.
Heffalumps and Woozles?
Heffalumps woozles.
Yeah. So Heffalumps and Woozles, I actually think this card is quite interesting because like if the format's relatively fast, being able to tempo your opponent out with a card like this in cantrip, is quite strong. It is an action and it is a song, so it is singable. So those are like pretty good pluses, and just like having the ability to stop something from questing is actually a pretty strong ability. So I could see an application for a card like this. This can buy you a little bit of time, and sometimes time is all you need.
Lumps and woozles. That is true. Mosquito bite. Put one damage counter.
This card's actually quite interesting because it is one of the few green cards that can actually start putting damage counters on things. So in green, there's a lot of cards that reward you for hitting damage characters or doing things against damage characters, but there's no way to enable it. And this is actually one of the few ways to actually enable that effect. So even though it only pings for one, I do think that like if you are doing like green X stuff, you don't have to rely on steel to be able to start proccing your damage effects. Don't know how good this will be, but it's something to keep an eye on at the very least.
I mean, if I put down my Maleficent card, it's dead if they just use this card.
Yes.
But then we both waste a turn, but I'm losing my 2 quester.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's pretty good against the things with like 1 toughness. It also pierces resist as well too, I think. So that is something to keep in mind. Because you're not dealing damage, you're putting a damage counter on something. So I hope to see more effects like this in green. That would be really nice.
And then we have You Came Back.
Okay, so this card is pretty nutty. The fact that it is ready chosen character and it doesn't have the text of it can't quest is quite strong. So you can actually do some interesting things. Like for example, you can make something quest multiple times, and
That's
trigger
cool.
their quest abilities like Robin Hood.
Wow.
Yeah, so you can do like Robin Hood things where you like Robin Hood, You Came Back, untap it and then quest again, and then just like basically like turbo Robin Hood things. This has a lot of utility. The main issue is that it is uninkable. But I can also see this card being treated more like a Gathering Wisdom and Knowledge, where you're just using it as pushing power late game. I think this card is quite good. I don't know what shell it's going to go in,
I think it is too.
I do like it a lot.
Oh, this is making me want to play green.
Yes.
Then we have Megabot. It's an item.
This card is not great, mostly because like it's really slow. It does have really good text of being able to banish chosen character. It's relatively cheap, but
Damage character.
Yes. So like this is gonna pair with something like Mosquito Bite. It is cheap, but it is slow. So if you can take advantage of how efficiently costed it is, but not have to worry about the speed, I think this card can be fine. But in general, I don't think this card's good enough.
Then we have Galactic Communicator.
Yep. So this is like a kit on an item. So the issue with items right now is that items are going to be relatively slow. They don't necessarily impact the board, and this does help catch up in terms of speed, or in terms of tempo. But you're losing a card for it, and if you really need an item with this utility, sure. But I don't know how good this is going to be. This is basically going to be worse than like a Mother Knows Best, or even like the Obscurosphere, for example. No, not the Obscurosphere. Sorry, the what is the purple sphere that bounces something?
Befuddle?
No, not Befuddle. It's an item that is a sphere, and then it lets you bounce something that costs 2 or less. But in general, like, yeah, this card's not going to be very good, I think.
I'm trying to think because I do play purple, and I feel like that would help my deck, but I can't think about it.
Hmm. Yeah, it costs 3 to activate, so it's relatively expensive. So I don't necessarily know. There's just going to be a lot of support for your deck, Ellie. So I don't necessarily know if that's going to help your deck all that much. The purple item at the very least. But anyways, let's move on.
Transport pod.
Yeah, Transport Pod? Okay, I think this card is, I don't know if it's good, but it's definitely cool.
Hold
the
on.
ability to be able to move characters to a location for free, that's going to be relatively strong, especially since you have new cards like Speedway.
Yes, that's what I was just thinking.
It's
Like,
fine.
because that Speedway card is broken if we can get a character there.
Yeah, and it's not just Speedway that has synergies with it. It also has synergies with, like, for example, Treasure Mountain. Just like really expensive equip costs. Being able to cheat that is quite nice because, in general, saving on ink is pretty good. However, it does cost you a card, so you're gonna have to be able to recoup the cost of the card somehow. Um, I don't know how. I don't know if what the shell is going to be with this card, but I think this could be interesting.
I am liking yellow green with this card so far.
Yeah, I could see a blue-green shell or a green-steel shell with this card as well too, because there's some pretty decent locations. Green-red also has decent support as well too, because red has some good location support.
So now we're on a location for green. It's a 3-drop location, inkable, Peerless Maze. Perilous
Yeah.
Maze.
Yeah, Perilous Maze. That's right. I think that this reminds me a lot of a reverse library.
That's what I
So,
was thinking.
Yeah, it's the same stat line. It's pretty easy to equip, and it actually is quite tanky. So it also lets you somewhat protect your characters and give them the Flynn effect. So I would keep an eye on this card because I actually think this card can have a lot of potential. It's going to be difficult to see if this card is actually going to be good enough, because I don't know if questing for 1 is going to be strong enough, but it being able to protect your characters from challenging somewhat is quite strong.
And then we have Owl's Island.
Yeah, so this is a location that has action synergies. So another thing that Green got is a lot of random action synergies, especially with like in the green-red shell. Being able to pay 1 less for the first action in play, actually quite interesting. And it can help cheapen costs for cards like Bend in My Will. The question that I'm going to pose is, like, are actions going to be efficient enough to be able to answer the board and protect the Owl Island? Because one of the big things is, like, yes, you can play the Owl Island, you can slap a whole bunch of things onto it, but can you protect it long enough and protect your own lore total enough to be able to utilize this ability? That remains to be seen.
Okay, so here's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Hear this.
Yep.
Purple, green. This, you have to have at least 5 ink. This island, plus the gathering knowledge, gain 5 lore 1 turn.
I mean, that could be a thing.
Broken.
Yeah, like it being able to gain 3 lore on play instantly, I think it's a pretty strong ability.
Oh, you need to play a second action. So I would need 7 ink.
Maybe you can play something like Owl Island plus.
Good job. Oh no, that's yellow. That's yellow. Ooh, I'm getting.
Improvise.
I'm getting.
You can go like
Ooh.
improvise or mosquito bite. There's a lot of like actions that action synergies that you can work off of this Owl Island. But what the shell looks like, I'm not super sure. Heffalumps and Woozles also like weirdly might go into this shell as well too. But protecting this Owl Island is going to be the most difficult part, I think.
And then we have, now we're into the reds, the rubies. We have Mickey Mouse, Pirate Captain. This is definitely a pumpkin spice latte card. Lots of effects for it.
Yeah. So it has some relevant tags, which is Pirate and Captain. So red is
And
actually,
Hero.
I think, the strongest pirate color currently. It shifting for 3 can be relevant because green-red with like morph shifts with Mickey Mouse could be interesting. But the ability of being able to quest with this card and give it take no damage from challenges can be interestingly paired with like a card like Captain Hook. There's Captain Hook that's a 5/4 that whenever it challenges and banishes a character in that challenge, you can ready it, and it can't quest for the rest of the turn. So this is actually a 2-card combo that are both pirates. So this is something that you can do with this one.
Okay. And then we have Kakamora.
Okay, so Kakamora, just a rush 5/2. Rush in this set is going to be pretty strong. However, the issue with this card is that there is an Inca version of this card and pairs much better with Pirate Ship. If you're going to be a pirate, you're going to already have access to Pirate Ship, and so Rush is kind of redundant. You don't actually need this this Rush tag. I don't necessarily know if this card is going to see play in Pirates specifically, but it being a Pirate tag is relevant.
Then we have Jasmine. Whenever this character quests, each opponent loses 1 lore, almost like a Lyle.
Is there a second Kakamora as well too?
Oh yeah, I skipped over it. Oopsie.
Yeah. So now this Kakamora is different because so especially in Green Red Pirates, you want your cards to be your pirates to be relatively cheap, and you want them to have somewhat of utility. This card covers both. This gives you a lot of Diablo coverage in Pirates, and it also lets you give something evasive so that it can't get attacked down. So like, let's say you want to protect like your Daisy or your Winnie the Pooh. These are cards that can Kakamoras will have a lot of utility. And the Pirates is generally an archetype that wants to go wide, and it actually can reckless quite well as well too. 1/3 isn't a great attacking stat line, but being able to hit something like relatively small and survive is pretty good.
And then we have the Jasmine one, which this is a pretty good one, especially for like red-green potentially with Lyle, because Lyle also, if you attack into him, you lose a lore.
So I do like that this does lose lore. It is also like an okay stat line. The main issue is that like, do you want this in a red-green shell where you're trying to shift into Jasmine? I don't necessarily know where this is going to belong, and it's also going to get run over by most other things in the format. So it's something to consider.
Okay. And then we have Raya.
Okay, so Raya is the ability to be able to ready something is going to be relatively strong, especially on an ability that's going to be pretty free. Stat line is not it's not super great, but it's like reasonable. I don't know where this belongs, I'll be honest. So it can be in like maybe like a red aggressive shell. It doesn't have hero tag, so maybe like a red blue. Like
it has princess.
Huh?
It has a princess tag too.
Yes, it has a princess tag too. Which can be like a red yellow like Queen Census score deck. Could also be a thing as well too. But I personally don't know where this belongs, but you could see like utility from this card.
Then we have John Silver. No, then we have Wendy Darlin. Wendy Darlin.
Yeah. So Wendy Darling is actually one of those cards I was talking about before, where it has a pirate tag and is relatively efficient, especially when you turn on the synergies. So 2 for a 2/2, quest for 2, and is evasive. That is above the regular stat line for a card like this. Even though it's uninkable, this is actually going to be one of your better pirates. It's aggressive. It basically will maybe quest for like 2 to 6 on average, and it does demand an answer and it does contest Diablo. So this is one of the reasons why I think like pirates are actually going to be pretty decent against Diablo, because it has a lot of tools to give evasive inherently within the archetype that it doesn't have a lot of cost to, and and because it can quest pretty reliably, it can turn on cards like Daisy Duck pretty well.
Then we have John Silver. You're a big fan of John Silver.
I like John Silver, but I like the green one better. Mostly because I like Reckless's ability. But this John Silver is also pretty decent as well too. Pirate, Captain, and Villain are all tags that are pretty relevant. I know Alien has some synergies as well in this new set. I don't know if this card um, will see play in the pirate archetype itself, because one thing about the pirate archetype is that it's really, really uninkable intensive. And if you take a look at the cards that you want to play already, like you've got Weighted Darling, you have Pirate Ship, and then we'll take a look later, we'll have Mini Mouse as well too. That's already a lot of your uninkable slots that are devoted to pirates and the archetype. So whether this is going to be one of the first cards that you might look at cutting in the pirate archetype, but I could see it also being a decent role player as well.
Then we have Vanellope Von Sweets.
Okay, so it's got my 3 favorite words: draw a card.
And gain a lore.
Yes, and it gains the lore as well too. It also has some pretty decent shift targets as well too in yellow. I think that this has the potential to be pretty strong if like something like Brawl doesn't see as much play or like Strength. But I doubt it. The fact that you can play this onto Sugar Rush Speedway starting line and then be able to equip it for free means that you can start turning on this ability at 3. It's basically, you can play this card like a beast on turn 3, and that can be relatively scary.
Yeah.
It does force your opponent to challenge into your locations, and maybe that's what you want, because red is a color that does reward you for challenging. So maybe you can set up situations where you like play Vanellope on 3, and then you can blow your opponent out turns 3 or 4 by them challenging into your locations.
Okay. And then we have Michael Darling. This is a vanilla 2/2.
Yeah. So most importantly, so normally I don't talk about like 2/2s, but this actually might see play in pirates, mostly because it is a 1-drop that is a pirate. And if you take a look at red only has 2 1-drop pirates. It has the 2/2 Michael Darling, and then it has the 3/2 Moana. And this is the only one that can challenge early on, and it pairs nicely with cards like Cove or Pirate Ship, and then you can use it to turn on your pirate enablers. So there's Smeeze, for example, would want a card like this because it counts the number of pirates you have. Pirates want to go wide, and this helps with that strategy. Just being, it's a very efficient 1-drop that has a very relevant tag.
Okay. Then we have Aladdin.
So 2/3 Aladdin, we know that this is just a regular vanilla stat line, but notably it's also a shift target for the new Aladdin that quests for 2. But also this can be a shift body for the set 1 Aladdin. So I talked a lot about how lore loss can be relatively strong, and ways to like claw back lore and deal damage as well too can be relatively strong. This could actually be a relatively good body, because previously we didn't have a good body for the set 1 Aladdin. So I might keep an eye on this simply because it can be a role player in that spot.
Then we have Markanowski.
Yep, Markowski. It's a 4-drop, 3/2 quest for 2, evasive. Pretty decent stat line. Evasive is a pretty strong keyword.
Yeah.
It is a little fragile. 2 damage is very easy to hit.
With Elsa.
Yeah, it's a vanilla card. I'm not going to expect too much out of this. Mini's probably going to be better than this card.
Then we have Abu Rush 4/4. Now there's been talk that this is almost like a Maui, because it's like the only.
It's almost like a Maui, but it's also not like a Maui. Mostly because it's uninkable, whereas Maui is inkable.
But you get 2 more.
Yeah, I think this is more of a limited card. I think this is not exactly what we're trying to do with our 5-drop uninkables, especially since like red right now is actually really clogged on uninkables. So I don't know if this is gonna find.
And then.
Sorry, Allie.
I'm liking this card. I love Abu. First off.
Abu's very cute though. Like, I'm gonna give you that.
I also don't even know if I'm gonna be playing red. What'd you say?
I wish Abu was a pirate.
That would be sick.
Yes, that would be more interesting.
Who knows? Maybe next set.
Yeah, maybe next set.
So then we have Mickey Mouse, Hero.
Cool. So, this is not much to write home about. There's a couple of cards like this. So there is Milo, I think, from one of the previous sets that does something similar with all his characters at a location. He gets some sort of bonus, and I think there's a mini and Steel that does it as well. But in general, 3-4-4-4 is decent if you can turn it on. But the only reliable way that doesn't require ink is going to be Speedway. And if you're going to be playing Speedway, there are other cards that you can attach to it that are going to be significantly better than this card. So again, seems like a limited card, but you know, it's reasonable.
Then we have the Moana Pirate. I think this is better because this is a 3 attack.
Is there Adora before that?
Oh yeah, I don't know why I keep skipping.
Yeah, I'm not super sure as well. But Adora while this character has damage, she gets +1 more. Not much. It just seems like even if you proc her, like she doesn't seem to be quite good.
She's just French vanilla.
Yeah, it just seems like another self-damaging card that is like can be reasonable, but the stat line isn't very good. So I wouldn't play this card.
Ooh, you wouldn't play this card. Okay. And then now we have Moana.
Okay, so Moana actually has a really nice tag, which is Pirate. And I talked about this a little bit before. So in the Pirate archetype, there's a lot of captain characters that can turn on Moana, especially relatively cheap. And it pairs really nicely with like a turn 1 Moana into a turn 2 Wendy Darling. Like that curve is extremely potent, and that's something to watch out for in the new set. Moana can also shift up into the 7-drop Moana, which has location synergies. The question is like, do you really want that burn effect, and are you that heavy into locations? If you are, I can see it be something that you want to be doing. But in general, this card, you want this card to quest. And it's very, very solid body. 1-4-3-2 that is inkable, that is extremely above the curve. So if you are playing some sort of red pirate shell, you have to play 4 copies of this card. There's no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Ooh. And then, wait, I wonder... We have John Darling, very much a vanilla card.
Yes. Again, pirate tag, super duper relevant, because like just even vanilla pirates that don't do anything, later on can have utility for cards like Daisy Duck. Just like being able to turn on your pirates, basically all your pirates say rush as well too, if you're playing Jolly Roger. So this could be something that you could keep an eye on, but it's probably one of the worst pirates in this archetype.
Yeah, I was about to say there's nothing to him, and he only has 1 attack.
It's decent in red-yellow, I think, because red-yellow has synergies with Rapunzel. And it being a 1-4 actually is pretty good. Because you can play like Teeth and Ambitions with this card. And then you can heal it off with Rapunzel afterwards. And I can see like a sort of like a slightly more defensive pirate deck wanting a card like John Darling.
Ooh, okay. Then we have Aladdin. A 1-4,
Okay, so,
it's a shift target.
I think this Aladdin is decent. Like being able to get plus power is quite nice, especially in a format where locations seem to be pretty strong. So if you are playing a more low to the ground strategy, I can see Aladdin being like a cheaper version of Cricky. And if that's an effect that you might be interested in, it can also turn on like stuff like Li Shang, and sort of give your guys an overrun effect. I think that there might be a home for this card. Whether or not it's like in a pirate deck or some other go-wide strategy, I'm not super sure, but I could see something play for this card.
Okay. And then we have Minnie Mouse. Pirate.
Okay. So, yeah, I think this card's really strong. Anytime a card basically says draw a card, which Minnie Mouse does, it's quite good. It has a very relevant tag in Pirate, and also Pirates currently have a lot of synergies with locations. So this makes cards like Pirate Ship a lot more viable, because previously you didn't have a way to buy back your Pirate Ship, because if your Pirate Ship dies, you basically go -1. You don't get the card back, and you're stuck. However, Minnie Mouse makes it so that you can loop your locations back, and it makes it so that if your locations die, it's not that big of a deal. One of the big synergies for Minnie Mouse is not only can you buy back like your cheap 1-drop locations, but you can also do stuff like do like either Underworld or what is the Pride Lands loops. So
Ooh.
like for example, there's a 3-drop Pride Lands that has 8 willpower and Quest for 1. what you can do is you can go like, hey, I will, put 3 guys onto the Pidelands, crack the Pidelands, buy back the Mickey, and then ink, and then put the Mickey, the mini back onto the battlefield afterwards.
Okay.
And then loop back the Pidelands afterwards. So you can do like a Pidelands mini loop. It is relatively slow, but it's like this is like one of the reasons why you want to play locations in the first place. It's simply because of mini. This card is going to be a quite good card. It is relatively fragile, though, I must say.
Then we have another Moana to shift target.
Mm-hmm. And the
She's a pirate
location
and a
thing
captain.
is continues.
Yeah.
It has some really good tags: princess, hero, pirate, captain. These are all really, really good tags. And then when you play this character, you can move any number of characters, and then you just dome them for the number of characters moved to the location. Moving the location is going to be relatively strong because you have speedway synergies. You have like if you're playing RLS, this could be also really strong. You just slap everybody onto the ship and just quest in for game. Like this could be a quite a nice haymaker in the late game. It is a little bit expensive to ship. It's a little bit expensive to play, but if you can get to this point, the effect is relatively strong.
Yeah,
So,
I'm liking this card.
yeah, the question is like how fast is your call, and how fast is this going to be fast enough for what you're trying to do? It is relatively expensive.
If you go wide, you could have a lot of characters that you could be gaining a lore for because you get to move
Yeah.
them all for free.
Mm-hmm.
It's all about strategy.
Yeah, I could definitely see this in like Red Yellow Shell, where you're like trying to go wide with like piglets and stuff like that.
Then we have Pete, Vanilla.
So, I've been playing with this card a bit, and I actually think this card's quite good. It's an Oculus, it's a vanilla, it's a 5/2, it costs for 1. However, it has the most important tag, which is Pirate, and you combine it and slap it onto the Jolly Roger, and this thing chunks for 5. This thing lets you kill locations, it lets you kill Daisy Ducks very efficiently, it lets you kill a whole bunch of, like, it lets you trade in, it goes even with Maui as well. This card, like, will hurt.
This card slaps.
It's just a 5-power pirate, and it's kind of what you want.
Then we have Goofy.
Okay.
Rush
there's
evasive. Ooh.
6 is a lot, though. And I think this is relatively overcosted for these tags. Especially since it only costs for 1. Red is going to be this is going to be tough stuff for me, I think.
Then we have Maui. I feel like this is like the chase card this set.
Yeah, so I see a decent amount of hype around this card. This is another card that sort of lends me to the strategy of like, hey, or sort of the idea of like, hey, this next set is going to be fast because there's a lot of direct lore game. This is a defensive card. It is pretty slow. So if you have to be able to support this card in order to make it work. I don't know what Shell is going to look like. It does pair with a lot of the other action synergies in like green and red. But you would have to be able to support this card somehow.
And then we have Hades, Strong Arm.
Mm-hmm.
This is technically costing 8.
Yeah, so this card's really slow.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how this is a legendary. It doesn't have very good tags. It is a 5-drop. It's relatively fragile. The first time you use it, it probably just gets challenged into and dies. So I don't know about this one. I wish there was a home for it. Maybe in like a controlling shell, but like there's gonna be better cards than this, I think.
Ooh, you opened already a gift set of set 6. That's awesome. Okay, then we have Tigger.
Yeah, so if you are playing like the action archetype, this is a pretty good payoff. However, one of the issues with this card is that it doesn't necessarily hold the ground very well. So like you have to be able to play a lot of cards that like synergize with this in order to
In
make
action.
in order to make the action happen. So this is a hard card for me to evaluate because like I feel like actions want to play a little bit slower, but this reads to me like a fast card, like something that you usually want to like pump it a bunch and then quest in for a lot. later on. Jury's still out on this, but I think this card can be good, but it remains to be seen, like, if that archetype's going to be strong enough.
Okay, and then we
It's
have...
also a pirate as well, too. I forgot. It's a pirate. Really important tag.
And then we have Scar.
Okay, so 5 mana, uninkable, and it has Teeth and Vicious staple to it. I do think that the body is actually relatively strong. But if you don't have something to teeth onto, then it's going to be it's going to have to be able to shoot itself. So
Then it's gone.
Scar might kill himself. However, I can see some niche usages for this effect. Self-damaging is relatively strong in, say, red-yellow, especially since you can heal it off. Even red-blue can see some stuff because you have the new Baymax that can that encourages you to heal stuff off. So maybe we see something there. Removal is removal. So, and it's cheaper than something like, it's going to come down quicker than something like Tremaine or Medusa. So I would still keep an eye out on this card, actually. I think this card is actually relatively strong.
And then we have Thievery. I kind of like this card.
Yes. This is a pretty efficient burn cards. So if you have an archetype where you're drawing a lot of cards and you don't necessarily care about the card disadvantage you're getting from this card's actually relatively strong. Like, it's a cheap way to make your opponent lose lore and gain a lore. That can be pretty powerful, I think, in a format where just like questing to 20 is going to be the game plan for a lot of decks. It can also be part of the decks that want to quest to 20. So it reminds me of like a half of an inkable gathering wisdom and knowledge, and that could be strong.
And then we have Lead the Way.
Action, your character is supposed to do this turn. You kind of get this effect with like Aladdin, and you get a body staple to it as well. So I would probably rather play Aladdin over this card, but if you do want to be able to give +2 power to all your things, this is a cheap way to do it, I suppose.
Okay. And then we have The Islands I Pulled from the Sea, a song. Search your deck for a location card and put it in your hand.
Yeah.
This is like a better aerial.
This card is actually pretty nutty. Mostly because like Islands I Pulled from the Sea is a song, it's an action. Red is actually doesn't have very many good songs. So being able to scale off your being able to get a decent red song is strong. It is also one of the few tutors in the game as well. It lets you search your deck, and that ability in general in a lot of card games is really strong. Locations are also pretty good. One of the issues with this card, however, is that it is uninkable, and that can be an issue.
So with Ursula, the one that you get to sing songs twice, you technically put 2 locations back into your deck.
Yes.
That could
So
be
you can search for 2
problematic.
locations and put them into your hand. One of the big issues with this card, however, is that because it's uninkable, it actually it contests with a lot of other slots. Like, if you're playing in like an action-based, like, let's say like a red-green deck, you're competing for slots like Diablo, Owl Island, and then once you play those cards, you kind of just run out of cards you can legitimately play in that particular archetype. There's just a ton of really good cards, and you do want to be able to play them. So I've tried to build around this particular card, and I've noticed that you don't necessarily always play 4 copies of this card. You typically play around 2 to 3, mostly because your uninkable slots are just too cloggy if you do play 4 copies of this card. So that's something to keep an eye on.
And then we have Energy Blast. Banish chosen character, draw a card.
Yeah, it is really expensive.
Really expensive, and it's uninkable, so it's going to be so cloggy.
Yes, it's also very, very slow. I don't know if this card will see play. I would much rather play something like Dragonfire. Like, the extra card is less relevant, and you don't get a body as well, too, so not a big fan of this card.
Then we have Longboat. I feel like we saw this item once before earlier. Like the same like task type thing.
I think Kakamura had a pretty similar ability, and then you also had like Maui's Fishhook that does something similar as well.
Ooh,
Um,
okay.
yeah, this is just like a draft chaff, like a way to answer evasive stuff. Pretty good in draft. Don't think you'll see a lot of constructive play.
Then we have gold coin.
Okay, so this reminds me of like a cheap LeFou. I don't know. I don't think this card is going to. Maybe like if like red yellow, not red yellow, red blue sees like is more aggressive and wants to like leverage this effect. Maybe I could see something like this being good. But for the most part, I think like Ruby Chronicon is probably going to be better. Um, there's going to be other cards that are going to be better in this in that particular archetype. So.
Then we have card soldier spear. Again, I don't really think this is anything special.
Probably not. The issue is like it's kind of hard to get damage onto your characters. This is an efficient effect though. If you can get a lot of damage characters, I think this card actually gets pretty strong. But the issue is like how often can you get damage characters? It is also card disadvantage, but it is cheap. So it's a one drop. It has relevant text. I would keep an eye on it. It might have some niche usages, but for the most part, I wouldn't play this card.
Okay, and then we have Flotilla Coconut Amarade.
Yeah, Flotilla Coconut Armada.
Ooh.
So, at the start of your turn, if you have a character, this is one of those like lose lore. Your opponent lose lore and you gain lore equal to the lore lost this way. It is really expensive to equip. Two is much more than one. And especially if you're trying to put multiple characters onto the boat, so that if one of them dies, you can still profit the effect. It's going to be relatively slow. It's also unequal as well too, and like if you are playing like red, your unequal is also going to be relatively tight. So I wish this could be good, but I would rather play something like I don't know RLS, and just like forego the lower loss from your opponents.
You love RLS.
I do like RLS. I think RLS is actually pretty well positioned as well. It has a lot of relevant text. It's tanky. Quest for two. Like I think it's good.
And then we have Skull Mountain. This so reminds me of, oh no, it's Skull Rock. I just said Skull Mountain, like the Disney park ride.
Yeah. Skull Rock is interesting. It feels like it goes in the pirate synergy deck, but it is relatively expensive compared to all the other things. It does have 6 willpower, and it can gain you lore if you have a pirate character. However, I would rather play Hidden Cove over this card.
Ooh, okay.
It's cheaper to play, but if you're like red yellow, this could possibly go into pirates. It is quite good. This effect.
And now we're moving on to Sapphire. Ooh, red had a lot of good burn cards. I'm excited for it.
Yes. Blue gets a lot of inventor support as well as like some burn stuff as well too. Let's take a look. Are we taking a look at Ben right now?
We are taking a look at Ben. Ben is up.
Cool. Relevant tag of pirate. I don't think blue is the shell that you want pirates to be in. But maybe if blue gets more pirate support, this is something that you consider. But it is just a supporting character. Not much else to say about it.
And then we have Aunt Cass.
Okay. So this card scales your inventor characters. Oh, hi real quick, dude. This is Ducky.
Yes. He's on the Lorcana. He's on the luxury team.
Yeah. Hi.
This time we decided to not show the face because the audio was so bad last time.
Yeah. Audio was garbage, so yeah. It's me. It's Ducky.
They said that it sounded like you. Everybody knows your voice. I love that.
Yeah. On Cass, it's got a relatively fair body, and I don't think Inventors are going to be a relatively fast archetype. But if Inventors do get good, then this card does get strong. So it's something to keep an eye on.
You know, next time I'll just say that this card is like a caramel latte. Because that's what we're talking about, all of the cards. And maybe then he'll laugh.
Um,
Okay, then we
yeah.
have,
Anyways, moving on. An inventor.
yeah, Gadget Hack Wrench.
Yeah, so this actually reminds me of like set one aerial that scales off of item. If there's an item storm deck that that can pop off and use this particular card, I think that this card could see play. However, items don't necessarily fight for board very well, and if locations and just in general questing and direct damage is going to be really strong, you don't have time to be able to item storm and do stuff like that. Um, it would, yeah. It really depends on like if items can catch up to the speed of other decks that are doing a similar thing. Because you're not gonna have time to do like have like control tools to be able to deal with stuff. Because you're either playing cards like Hack Wrench and then items, or you're like spending time removing other things. So not really sure if it's gonna be good. It is a shift target for the bigger Hack Wrench though, so that's something to consider.
And then we have Zipper.
Shouldn't there be another Hack Wrench as well too?
Oh, there is. This is the shift target Hack Wrench.
Yep. So it does cheapen your inventor characters. It does require a lot of items in play. Inventors and items have a lot of synergies. But like I said before, it really remains to be seen if inventor is going to be fast enough as an archetype.
Now we're at Zipper.
Hmm?
I think I
Zipper,
just saw a
roar.
cute little like alien type thing, so I wanted to see what it was.
Yeah. So it's a 3-mana 2/2, quest for 2, and ward is a really good ability. However, this ward body is relatively small. It does have an interesting effect of giving other characters resist 1. If it gave itself resist 1, I would be happier with it. But in general, I do think that that this card is going to be slightly weaker simply because it's got a weaker body, and it's easy to challenge into something like this.
This
And
kind
right
of
now, at 3, you should be questing for 3 at 4/3 drop for the most part.
this kind of reminds me of the Cogsworth card, where you get the resist, but it was resist by 2. So it's kind of cool how like a lot of the blue decks are getting the resist cards. I'm noticing.
Yeah, blue gets a lot of resist support. It's like a mini Cogsworth, I suppose. But
Yeah.
it is temporary.
And then we have Oswald. This card.
If items are good, this card is good. If items are bad, this card is not good. I really wanted this card to be really strong. I actually thought when this was first spoiled that this card was going to be bonkers. However, if you look at the sort of the context of the entirety of the set, I don't know if Oswald's going to be fast enough. It's also relatively fragile. It does quest for 2, which is nice. But you do really need to have a lot of items to be able to make this work. And the question is like, oh, do we have enough good items? I don't freaking know. You can play very big items though, so that's nice.
Yeah.
Um,
And then
yeah, sorry about that. I can recap what I said. Oswald, if items are good, this card's very, very strong. But the question is like, do you have enough items to play, and do your items actually affect the board? If your items can affect the board, this Oswald can be good, but that remains to be seen if there are enough items to be able to affect the board. It does have slight like synergies with like stuff that scales off of your inventors coming into play, but the fact that it also doesn't have inventor tag of itself can be problematic. It remains to be seen if this card's good.
Then we have Yokai.
Yeah, yokai.
Yokai.
So this has the inventor tag. So blue has a lot of inventor support, like we said before. This actually has a pretty strong ability because being able to go like bounce like your popsicle and then cheat in a dime, for example. You can and that you can do that on curve. However, is that fast enough for this format? I don't know. Because this format looks relatively fast. It does seem like you can also like bounce a popsicle back and replay it in the same turn.
That's
but
what
it
I
does
was
require
thinking.
Yeah, it doesn't require your character to quest. It's a very powerful effect. I would like to see if it actually can see play. It is relevant that when you put it back, when you play it again, the card is untapped. So if you're playing like a Chromicon list, like an Amethyst Chromicon list, it you can use it again on the same turn that you bounce it back.
Ooh. And then we have Perkily.
Uh,
Peekily.
yeah, Pleakley.
Love this card.
So let's see here.
Almost like a
When you play this
T-bow.
character, yeah. So
With better
if this is the
stats.
only character, you have to put Pleakley into your Inkwell. It is actually like an inkable. I do like that it's kind of like an inkable Mickey Mouse. And you can
Ooh,
instantly
yes.
relatively weaker. Yeah. So I don't hate this card that much. But the problem is you are giving up board in order to do it, and you're losing a card essentially. So if you can capitalize off of this effect, I think it could be strong. But for the most part, Mickey Mouse might be better. Although if you are running out of infinite slots, then you can see this card being strong.
Okay, then we have Hero Hanama.
Hiro.
Hima.
Let's see. This is a slow searching effect. It's also got a pretty bad body as well too. So if you do activate this ability to search for a card, it doesn't necessarily protect itself very well. It's expensive, and it only puts it on top. It doesn't put it into your hand. So I don't know if I'm willing to spend 5 ink for that effect. There's just not enough good robots or items for me to want this card.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm not sure how much playable this card is either. Then we have Hey Hey.
Hey, hey.
Hey Hey.
So this card is relatively narrow. It does get evasive, so it's another way to contest cards like Diablo. But for the most part, there are better cards that do this and don't necessarily need this ability of exerting a chosen opposing item. Pretty weak role player, and a decent limited card at the very least.
And then we have Sour Bill.
Another vanilla card. I don't think this card's very good as well. The stat line's not very strong. The ability's not very strong.
So, Ducky, I think this is a French vanilla card. It has a little something there.
Kind of. So French vanilla cards are typically cards with just the keyword in all. So.
Ooh.
Yeah. This is, I guess, is kind of it. If you keyworded this ability, maybe.
And then we have Nick Wilde. I don't really think this character is that good.
No, this card is not that great. It does play nicely with support. I mean, a 3/2. If you can turn this on, it's actually pretty strong. But the problem is support as a general archetype is not very strong.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I wish this card was better. I wish this card was phrased more like Moana, actually, where it had the stats on the baseline and then could challenge if you had support. But unfortunately, we don't have that. However, this is a good shift target for the other Nick Wilde. But that might not be worth playing.
Then we have Wasabi.
Okay, so when you play this character, you may banish a chosen item. Its player gains 1 lore. That ability is like decent. It's like a half a bean. It is a 4-mana 3/3 that quests for 1, which is on the low side of this effect. If it quested for 2, it'd be slightly better. And it does gain evasive as well. So it can have some synergies with other like your items, and then it can be in like the Inventor archetype, and then be able to challenge cards like Diablo. So again, like in this new format, you still have to watch out for Diablo. Diablo is one of the best things you can do in this format, and there's a reason why people are calling for bannings of that card. I don't know if Wasabi makes into an Inventor deck. I think it needs to quest.
Okay. And then we have the other Nick Wilde card.
Yeah.
And this is more with item decks. So, like, if items are a thing, this card could be good. If not, this card is nothing.
Yeah. The issue with the card is that it quests for 1. It quests for 1 relatively consistently, though. So that is nice. This is an ability that we don't necessarily see quite a bit of. Like, this character can't be challenged is not a line of text that we see very often. Especially with like a blanket effect like this. However, because it only costs for 1, I think it's relatively balanced. I don't necessarily see a home for this card, even in like an item-based aggro deck, for example.
Then we have Gadget, Hackett Wrench. This is definitely a
Yep.
vanilla card.
Yeah, it's definitely in vanilla. Just another ship target for Gadget. I do like that Gadget gets a lot of support in this in these colors. But I don't know if this one's going to be playable.
Then we have Dr. Dilbert Doppler.
Doubler. Yeah, 4/4, cost for 4, vanilla. Not much else to say.
Then we have Tadashi Hamada.
Okay, so 6 is a lot in this format. So
Yes.
the question is like, how big does this need to be in order for this card to be good? I think you need around 3 or 4 items for this card to actually be relatively strong. Because if you are paying 6 for a 6/6, that costs for 3, that's a pretty above rate. However, getting to 6 is going to be the hard part, and then 6 has a lot of opportunity cost as well too. Because like, if you like, let's say you're playing this in like Portable, you're contesting with slots like Hades. Baymax is also just going to be slightly better as well. At 5, it's hard for you to find room for a card like this, and getting to 6 is going to be one of your biggest struggles. And while still staying alive and playing items, so that's one of your big issues.
Hero.
Okay, so your other inventor characters get resist 1. We know that from Cogsworth, this ability is relatively strong. And it has the ability to look at the top card of your deck to either put it on top or bottom, which has synergies with like Roland's Cottage. I've been hearing a lot of rumors about like a later control style deck. I'm just going to tell you right now, I don't think it's very viable, but the ability to give your inventor characters resist 1 could have potential. Unfortunately, it doesn't have ward and it doesn't have a very good body. I see this card being like half a Cogsworth. But it could
Half
also
of a
live with
Cogsworth. We like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's like half a Cogsworth. Yeah.
Ducky, while you're talking about this card really quick, I have to go help a customer, so I'll be right back. Then I'll switch to the next card. Thank you so much.
Okay, cool. I think Tadashi Hamada is actually a really interesting card. It does give you, it basically gives you a 3-for-1. It lets you basically double rank. However, how do you trigger this card? You have to wait for your opponent to run into it, so you can't actually time when you double rank. So this could be really good in a sort of aggressive shell. And it does force your opponent to have to react to it, but if you're playing in an aggressive shell, can you leverage the extra ink after you get it? It's hard for you to say. And then if you draw it late game, it is relatively weaker. I don't know how I feel about this card. I want this card to be really, really strong because it does do a lot of powerful things. I think I need to test with this card more. I personally would say, but for the most part, I'm going to be cautiously optimistic about it, and I really, really want it to be good. Let's see. Is Allie back yet? No.
Okay, I'm back.
Alright, cool. Welcome back.
I know, I agree. It'd probably be better if it's inkable, but I feel like all of the cards would be better if they're inkable.
Yeah. But I actually think this card is actually worth the unequal slots in a specific blue archetype. I don't know what the archetype is going to be, but I think this card's really good.
And then we have Baymax.
Cool. Baymax, this is another card that scales off of having 11 inventors. If you play it for 2, it's actually really above rate. So it's actually really strong if you do play. And it has the ability to heal. It's also relatively tanky, so that if you do have some chip damage on it, you can also heal it off with a card like Baymax, the other Baymax. It also has its own healing ability as well too. I don't know if that one's going to be good enough, but it is something to sink your ink into if you have a lot of ink later on, especially if you're playing Harley Kamada with it.
And here's the other Baymax, the legendary one.
Yeah, I think this card's actually pretty insane.
I think so too.
Yeah. The ability to be able to heal something and then be able to ding your opponent for 2, quite strong. It So I noticed that like in Steel, for example, there's a lot of synergies with it because there's a lot of stuff that requires your stuff to have no damage on it. So there's synergies there. There's Amber synergies with healing other things. You can layer it with like Rapunzel, for example, and just like have things that have a bunch of things dealt damage to it. There's it combos with the self-damaging theme. This card makes the format really fast. So you're gonna have to have ways to play around with cards like Baymax in the mid to late game. For example, in Steel, you can also like turn your removal spells that are dead and just turn them into burn spells later on. So really, really interesting card. A lot of cards when they say when you play this character when they quest, do a thing that gives you value. Those cards are going to be extremely strong in general. Like cards like John Silver had that line of text. Faversham has that line of text. Anything that with that ability and does something that affects either the board or the game state, yeah, Faversham, exactly. Those cards are going to be incredibly strong. So I would keep an eye on Baymax. Very.
I think that there's going to be a lot of like sneaky lore gaining in this meta.
I don't know about sneaky. I think it's going to be pretty in your face.
But like when it's like there's like the one I think Robin Hood card where you can gain lore if you have like a damaged character, like like stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. I do like it mostly because like the healing is actually quite relevant. Because a lot of times your cards get chipped down quite often, and so like you're basically drawing cards with this ability and gaining lore. So anytime you're doing that, it's going to be really, really strong.
So now we're at Yokai, and this is a 2/2 vanilla card, but at least it's like a 1-drop for them.
Yeah, so it's a 1-drop inventor, so that actually is pretty relevant because there are cost reduction effects that reduce the cost of inventors. So 1-drops are going to be relatively important in this format, mostly because you have to get on board really quickly because of the speed of the format. You can't afford to dawdle. You skip a couple of turns, you're just going to die. The problem is that the shift target for this is really expensive, but at least the shift target is inkable. And I wish the shift target would be stronger.
Okay. And then we have Hiram Flavorsham. This is another vanilla card, inventor though, but 0/2, but it quests for 3. Almost like they're again Pinocchio.
Yep, it's a 0/2 Pinocchio. Like I said before, cards are getting a lot more efficient, and direct lore gain is a thing. A card like this can definitely see play in an aggressive shell. Sometimes removal might be too slow, and if you don't remove this, you're just going to get domed for 3, and you're going to lose that race pretty quickly. So, and it's got the relevant inventor tag as well.
And then here is the shift target for a yokai.
Mm-hmm.
It's a 9.
It does have my favorite text on it. Shift for 6 is quite a bit. It is a 6/10 and it's really bulky, so it's a nice body. I don't know if the ability to play microbots for free is going to be super relevant, because mostly the microbots kind of suck. And there's not going to be a lot of ways to reduce your opponent's characters to 0. Like you could play Ice Block in the shell, but even with Ice Block, it's going to be difficult to get things down to 0.
Yeah. And then we have Alice, a hero.
Yeah, so 3 mana, 1/4, quest for 2, it's got Ward. This card actually kind of slaps.
I think so too.
Yeah, Ward is an extremely strong keyword, and if you can protect this card somehow, either through Bodyguard or ways to reduce power or whatever, like the ability to for 3 mana, 1/4 as Ward in quest for 3, that's extremely good rate. Like we are definitely away from the days of Cusco, where you need to pay 5 for an uninkable to quest for 3. This is a 3 mana uninkable that quests for 3, and sometimes even gets an additional Ward the turn you play it as well too. So extremely aggressive card. Very hard to interact with. It doesn't get balled. So I see this card being very strong.
Okay. Then there's We Could Be Immortals.
Cool. So I think this card is actually super cool. It does give your Adventurous characters resist 6. So if you are questing it aggressively, it makes it so that they can't really challenge. So it pairs well with like the Flower Sham thing. Giving yourself resist in general is a pretty strong ability. It is a one-time effect though, but it does replace itself because it ramps. So I like this card a lot. It could be a decent tempo play. It remains to be seen if like your inventor archetype can actually race with other characters, with other archetypes though.
I didn't even see that it counts as ink, so like that's like almost perfect.
Yeah, I think it's pretty decent.
Then we have Sail the Azurite Z.
Yep. So this for all you Magic players out there, reads Explore. Explore in general is a pretty good card. However, I don't know if you can take off turn 2 in this one, just to ramp. If you can capitalize and stabilize off of your extra ink that you get off this card, card's very, very good. And it does come down relatively early. If you do take off your turn 2, I think this card can be strong. Yeah.
Okay, and then we have Helping Hand. Again, like the support really, like that archetype is just not that good.
Yeah. The card does cantrip though, so it does say draw a card on it. So it is. I mean, it is uninkable, but it is relatively cheap to play in cantrip. So something to keep in mind is like maybe there's a blue-green deck that like wants to cantrip a bunch and be able to deal a bunch of damage. Maybe there's like blue-green action deck that could want a card like this, but you do have better options in like visions or develop your brain or what's that peak card? The one that looks at your opponent's hand and draws a card.
Oh, isn't that like the eyeball?
Yeah, the eyeball card. Yeah.
I think everybody knows what you're talking about, but right now we all don't know the name of it.
Yeah. Actually, yeah. And actually, like, there could be a blue-green shell with, like, Sailing Azurite Sea as an action as well. I'll have to think about it, because, yeah, I might want to brew something like that. That could be cool.
And then we have Prepare Your Bot.
Cool.
It's a one-drop, inkable.
Yeah. Ready chosen item. I see a lot of people want to do, like, cute, like, dime shenanigans with this, which you could do. Is it going to be fast enough? Yeah, that remains to be seen. And if you notice the general theme of like the way I'm phrasing a lot of these, like the context of these cards is like whether or not they're fast enough. Like, I think that dirtling with dime is going to be way, 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 way too slow. You have to be putting pressure onto the board the instant that you play. So, yeah, I don't know if it's good enough.
Then we have Baymax's Healthcare Chip, an item.
Yeah, generally healing cards like this aren't going to be relatively strong. You need to really have something that scales off of this healing effect.
Okay, and then we have Microbots, and this I saw that one thing that you could play for free.
Yeah,
in that
so
one
this
card.
is a card that you can like sort of storm off with yokai. This is a cool card that like lets you play any number of Microbots in your deck. However, it's only on ETB, so I don't know how strong an effect like this can be, but like maybe there's like an effect where you can go like you can play this like with Royal Tantrum. You just play a lot of these Microbots onto the field free, and then you just pop all of them with Royal Tantrum and draw. It seems a little bit dirtily.
I love that word, dirtily.
You are drawing a lot of cards, so I don't know.
Then we have Jumbo Pop.
Banish this item. This is just an uninkable. This is just an uninkable big popsicle. I do like that it says draw a card on an item.
That's your favorite 3 words.
Yeah. However, 3 is a lot more than 1. So this cost is big and it's also uninkable as well. I wish I could play this with popsicles. But it being costing 3 is going to be really, really big.
So then we have our locations.
Hold on. If we go back to Jungle Pop as well too.
Yeah. Sorry.
I just realized that drawing a card is conditional on you removing two damage on each of your characters. So it doesn't even draw you a card when you play it. So it's going to be significantly worse than Popsicle because you don't get the card in front.
True. So pretty much almost unplayable.
Yep. It looks pretty unplayable to me.
Rescue Ranger Submarine, a 1/8. Ooh, this is just helping you ramp faster.
Yeah. This. Okay, this one's a hard one for me to evaluate because I actually think this card is, this effect is actually relatively strong. It's really hard to kill, as well. I want this card to be good. I hope this card is good. It's a pretty powerful ability, and you basically start ramping after turn 3. And if you can keep stuff in the submarine, you can actually ramp quite a bit.
So my whole thing is, I just think it would be so much better if it got a lower for the blue, because like it would just keep them in the game. I feel like faster too.
Yeah, it would be insane if it got a lore because it has 8 willpower and a quest for 1. Like, holy heck, that'd be so.
Pumpkin spice location right there.
Let's see.
Now we're at Institute of Technology location.
Another inventor like synergy. So like this set also like seems to be pretty synergistic. It tries to flesh out these archetypes, and we definitely see a very strong inventor theme here. It is very cheap. It does quest for 1 if you have an inventor on it. And it does give your inventor a little bit of tankiness as well too, which is actually relevant. Like we know that from like hidden code, just giving something like +1 health, it can be very strong. I mean, it has the potential to be good.
Okay, and now we're on to our steel cards.
Cool.
Katamora. We have another one of these
Yeah.
guys.
So
Pirate.
this is part of the pirate archetype. I think that Kakamora is going to. You're going to have to make a business decision when you're playing a card like Kakamora, because the question is like, what are you pairing it with, and how many uninkable slots will you? This card is really good because it is cheap. And however, this is not a card that you necessarily want to play on turn 1. It does give you a really nice critical number of pirates in, like, say, red steel. But then it also means that you can't really play a lot of the top end pirate stuff, like the big Kakamora or Mr. Smee.
And then we have another Kakamora, the big one. Again, it's uninkable.
Yep. When it quests, it lets you loot, which means you get to draw and discard a card, and then it can let you deal damage, and if you're playing pirates, it can deal 300 damage instead. 7 is quite a bit, and if you're not playing blue, which you probably aren't in a pirate deck, then it's going to be really expensive to get up to.
Yeah, because blues are inventors.
Yeah. I would much rather play the Smee instead. It does have relevant ties of pirate return.
Jim Hawkins.
Okay. This is mostly a shift target for the big Jim Hawkins, but I think both are relatively going to be weak. This is another part of the when a card is put into your equal cycle. 2/4 that quests for 2, that challenges for 2, like it. I guess it can be okay. It is a decent stat line at least.
Just decent. Then we have Mr. Big.
Okay.
1/1.
I irrationally like this card. I know it's really fragile. I know it can get blown up by anything, but like, if you can quest in with this thing, like, holy heck, is this hard to remove? Like, sometimes there's just not enough like small toughness things on the board, and like this could be tough to remove. It is uninkable. I know it's not very good, but I want this card to be good.
This character can't be challenged by characters with 2 attack or greater, so that means like only like my Maleficent can attack it.
Yeah, or like a Daisy Duck can challenge into it, or there's a lot of like one like power stuff, but I mean I want this to be good. I know it's not good.
But still, I see what you're saying. That could work.
Yeah.
Then we have another Mr. Smee. Ooh.
Okay, Pirate Tag, extremely relevant. Curves nicely with like Jolly
It has
Roger.
evasive.
It gives your character evasive, so it lets you contest Diablo, it overlaps with the other Mr. Smee, but like you kind of really don't mind having multiples of these effects. Just cheap pirates are just going to be good in general, and they're going to be at a premium. And this is also another shift target for the big Mr. Smee.
That's
and
coming up
that
next.
card will be really strong.
And here's the big Mr. Smee.
Yeah. So it shifts for 4. It's got a pretty good body. It quests for 2. It's a 3/6. And it lets you shoot something the turn that you play equal to the number of other pirate characters you control. This is one of the reasons why you want to play Pirates and Steel. The question is like, do you want to pair Steel with red or do you want to pair with green? Because there's two like good reasons why you. Well, there's good reasons why you want both colors. If you're playing green, you get Daisy Duck, which is really powerful as a card draw engine. It lets you sort of fuel your engine. And if you're in red, you get Jolly Roger, which is big. Because Jolly Roger is one of the best ways to turn on cards like Daisy Duck. But you have to basically be able to choose between the two. So Smee is the big reason to play Steel in Pirates. So you have to choose between Smee, Jolly Roger, or Daisy Duck, and pick one of the 3.
Then we have Mullins.
Okay.
Resist. Another Cogsworth.
Yeah.
Half of a
It
Cogsworth.
only gives this character resist 1 though. So.
Ooh,
it doesn't
okay.
give all your other characters resist 1.
I feel like
so
this-
it's not as good than Cogsworth.
This card would be so much better if it gained like maybe another lore, so like 2 lore.
Yeah. Very relevant tag of Pirates. 6 power is actually pretty relevant, especially if like locations are going to be strong.
And then we have Kohut.
Uh,
I have no idea if I pronounced that correctly.
I don't know what the right pronunciation is because I haven't seen this movie. So.
Me either. I need to watch it.
Yeah. I haven't seen. I think it's from Wreck-It Ralph though.
Maybe one of the
I believe.
viewers will tell us what it is, because I do not know.
Yeah, I think it's from Wreck-It Ralph because I know Calhoun's from Wreck-It Ralph and they have very similar body odor. So.
This is just like a regular vanilla card, 2/3.
Yeah, sorry. Okay, I'm not like I'm a fake Disney fan. Okay, like Cookie, like please. Not
I
personally.
know. Okay, I really like the princess movies. That's my thing. Okay, so then now we have King Herbert, Philip's father. Ooh, I feel like this is the first time we saw a king tag.
Yeah, King's not a very good tag, but there's King Sensor Core, which is relevant. But yeah, not much more to write about. This is basically Steamboat Willie, but in Steel. I don't think Steel has a card that has the stat line yet, but I do like it.
Then we
like
have
the stat line in general. It's just a vanilla card. I don't think this is going to see very much play.
Hercules gets Challenger +2, so that's a 4/4, and it costs for 2.
Plus for 2.
Pretty strong
That's
card.
not, yeah, it's not bad. If like Hero or Prince becomes like a very, very relevant type, or the big, it's part of a good shift line, I can see this being okay. It is relatively slow for me though, so maybe this could see some utility. I don't know. You have better cards like Lawrence, which cost less than this card.
Then we have John Silver.
Okay. Another really good reason to play Pirates. It's got a lot of really good tags: villain, alien, pirate, captain. The ability of chosen character can't challenge during their next turn, I actually think is quite strong. I actually think this ability is quite strong. It kind of fights for like a very similar like Pete slot, except for against creatures. Being able to stun them for a turn can be nice, and challenging is going to be a big part of this format, anyways. It also challenges quite nicely if you pair it with something like Jolly Roger, because like 3/4, 3/3 body rush that is inkable, quite strong. I could see this card being decent.
Then we have Mr. Arrow.
Okay, so it's a 2-mana 1/2 that has resist 1. Essentially a 1/3 that quests for 2. Pretty good actually. It's a nice aggressive card if you're looking to be like aggressive Steel. What you pair this with, I'm not exactly sure, but
It's an
it is
alien.
cheap and powerful. I could see this being decent in Steel Song actually as well
That's
too.
what I was thinking, because
Um,
that one lady from Stitch, she says all alien characters you get an additional lore.
yeah, if you really want to lean into the alien stuff, it could be interesting. But I don't even think you need that much help with this card. This card is just decent on its own. It's got a decent body at the very least.
So then we have Jim Hawkins.
Let's see. Uninkable, shifts for 3. It does. There is a decent shift line for this, but for the most part, this is going to be more for like limited play. Dealing 1 damage to a chosen character or location is relatively weak, and it's only on play, so it's not like on play or quest. I wish this card was. I mean, I wish this card wasn't inkable, but like it's.
Yeah, I don't think this card's going to see much play.
Yep.
Then we have Tuk Tuk.
So we basically have Captain from set 1, but in steel form. Just a big burly dude. It's just a big stat stick. But I think like the era of just giant stat sticks is over. It has to do other things now.
And it's vanilla, so yeah.
Yep.
Then we have Billy Bones.
Okay. I think Billy Bones is actually quite good. It's got relevant tags in Pirates, and has the ability to, when it's banished, you may banish chosen item or location. If
That's kinda
locations are
cool.
strong, if you need a tech choice, I actually think this is a nice, cheap option that you can develop early and then just have it stick around on the board and basically prevent your opponent from playing locations in a meaningful way. It's the stat line is relatively weak, but if you're in Pirates, like that might not matter as much because you're just trying to quest it anyways.
Then we have Pluto,
Okay.
a bodyguard, and then oh my god, it's almost like a Lawrence a little bit, because
Yes.
while this character has no damage, he gets +4, so then he's a 5/5.
I think this card's really strong. I actually think this card's extremely good and one of the better cards in the set. On 4-drop 5/5 that has bodyguard is going to prevent your opponent from being able to challenge into a lot of your characters early. It's going to be really good in an aggressive steel deck. And it covers a lot of your early steel cards. Unfortunately, it doesn't have very good tags. However, you can heal it off with like Baymax and then or Rapunzel and then get synergies there. So in general, it's going to absorb a lot of damage and it's going to deal a lot of damage back if it is that full. And it synergizes super duper well with healing and aggression. So extremely good card. I can see a lot of this wanting to play 3 or 4 with this card.
Then we have Mickey Mouse. Oh, your character's named Pluto gain resist 1. Those two together.
Unfortunately, the stat line on it's not very good. However, it does have that mini synergy. I do see a place where you can go like 1-drop Pluto into turn 2 Mickey Mouse with this Pluto. But like if you're in like Amber Steel, there's better stuff to be doing than that. So
That's very true. Then we have Cobra Bubbles.
yep, Cobra Bubbles. It's got bodyguard. It's a really weak bodyguard. And you can draw a card and discard a card by paying 2.
Kind of slow.
It's a lot of ink that for a whole lot of do nothing. Like compare this to like Chimpo, where it's like a 4/7. Like you're losing out on like 4 whole stats in order to for this ability to draw and discard. It's just not worth it.
Then we
It's
have
just pound not very good.
yeah. Then we have Gantu. This is a Gantu 3.0 at this point.
Okay, this gone to quest for a boatload. 5 is a lot. 4 is a lot. And for 5, that's a very efficient rate. So like I can see this being very good in like a aggressive steel deck. 3 is a little bit weak on the defensive side of things, but like it quests for a boatload. It does have a relevant captain tag as well too, so you can pair it with stuff that scales off of captains.
Like Mr. Smee.
Yeah, like Mr. Smith.
Then we have Wreck-It Ralph.
Okay. This card is super cool. When this was first spoiled, a lot of people were like super interested in this. This gives Steel a really good way to deal with items or locations. 2 big questions. One, is this card going to have a lot of targets on your opponent's side of the board? Because if you're building up your opponent's locations, this is pretty good. If you're building up your own locations, it's going to be significantly worse. However, it does quest for 5 if you do build it up. So And the second question is, can you get to 6 in a reasonable manner? And if you can, I can see this card being like pretty decent. Like, it's a little small. Like a 4/4 for 6 is going to be on the smaller end, but questing for 3 is going to be a lot.
And then we have Calhoun.
Yeah. I think Calhoun's one of the better cards in this in Steel currently. I think this card's really strong. 2 mana 3/2 is already good rate. It is uninkable, but it has resist 1. And then whenever it challenges stuff, which is what you kind of want to do with this this early game card, you get to gain 2 lore, and that's going to be really quick.
It's like a blue.
Sorry, what?
It's like a blue.
It's closer to a Robin Hood, actually, like
Ooh.
the 3-drop Robin Hood,
Okay.
the 5-drop Robin Hood. But it's 2 mana, and it gains a lot of lore for what it is. This card, like I see this card being like 3 or 4 copies in a lot of decks.
Okay. And then we have Captain Amelia. An alien, a captain.
It is a captain. It has can't be challenged by pirate characters, which is very interesting. If pirates get really good, this could be a decent hate card. However, while being challenged, your other characters get resist 1. I don't know how good this ability is going to be. It's also a pretty weak stat line. I think it's just mostly just like a flavor card.
Then we have Jafar.
Okay, Jafar.
Kind of like this card.
Yeah, Jafar has relevant tags like Sorcerer and Villain. It's one of those cards where, like, when you put something into your Inkwell, deal damage. This could actually see some amount of play in, like, pinging archetypes where you're trying to, like, just ping stuff off and then kill it with, like, effects like Ana and stuff like that. But in general, like, it's really expensive, and you have to be able to make it to this, to 5. But whenever you get something for free when you just put it into your Inkwell, generally a pretty good effect. And dealing damage is never bad.
And here is the John Silver Legendary. Shift 5, resist 2, and you get to deal 1 damage to an opposing ready character.
It's each opposing ready character.
Each opposing ready character. This card is broken.
If all your opponent's stuff is ready, then yes, it's pretty good. But if it's exerted, then you can just... So it actually can... It's really good at doing both things. The question is, like, can you get up to 8 or 6? Or 8 or 5.
8 or 5, yeah.
Yeah. I want this card to be good. I think this card actually can be really, really strong. If you're... It really depends on, like, how often your opponent's characters are going to be ready. Because if they're just racing out and just, like, questing in and just, like, willing to give up a bunch of cards just to gain lore, then this card gets less good. But it also gives you the opportunity to be able to run into it as well, too, and it is relatively tanky. So, I hope this card's good. I want it to be good.
Because you love John Silver. And then we have Hot Potato.
Okay, flavor-wise, really, really cool. Effect is not super great because you have Baboom in these colors for a cheaper rate. It doesn't replace Baboom because banishing a chosen item isn't necessarily as strong. It's okay. Like, it does a job. It does damage.
Then we have I'm Still Here, a song,
Okay,
resist 2, but only till the start of your next turn. But you get to draw a card, so you're replacing your hand, which you like.
yes. So, I've actually seen this card, like, this card looks good. It has a pretty strong ability, and it's pretty good in an aggressive deck. So, if you're playing an aggressive deck, I would consider playing this card, especially since paired with, like, a bodyguard card or, like, the new Simba, this has some amount of utility. And the ability to, just resist to draw a card, quite good.
Then we have Twin Fire. This card I think is pretty crazy.
Yeah. Just in general, removal spells are just going to be pretty strong. This reminds me of, like, Fire the Cannons, but you can basically do double Fire the Cannons if you want to pitch an extra card.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's okay. 2 is a lot. It's pretty expensive for, like, this effect. And it costing an additional card. Like, how do you replace it in steel? That's going to be, you're going to have to play a color that like can really capitalize on this. I can actually see this in like a green steel shell actually with like Diablo, so that you can also pitch this card if you don't want to play it. But yeah, this could be good.
Then we have Ambush.
Let's see here. Exert one of your characters to deal damage equal to power of the chosen character. It's a removal spell. It is pretty expensive though.
And it's uninkable.
Yeah, it costs quite a bit, and it's basically going to be worse than your songs. Yeah, not super sure if this is going to be super playable. I'd rather play one of your 3-cost songs.
Then we have Unfortunate Situation.
Each player chooses one of their characters and deals 4 damage to them. This is a way to get around ward. So that is interesting. But with these type of cards, we've noticed that the issue is like, how do you isolate the card with ward so you can actually hit the card you want? It kind of reminds me of Beaking, but you can't see it. It's just like okay, I think.
Then we have King Sensor Core. This is what you were talking about with the Prince and the King.
Yes. So this is going to be slightly different than the. This is a more defensive version of this card. Queen Sensor Core was more aggressive because it lets you get passive war gain. If you can afford to durdle with this card, it can be good, but I think this card is going to be too slow. You're just spending too much time doing nothing.
Then we have Training Dummy. Gains Bodyguard till the start of your next turn.
Yeah, you can get this effect off of Fortisphere for a lot cheaper. So, as much as I want Training Dummy to like be okay, like I think there are just going to be better cards in the slot. Like Fortisphere is going to get you a card as well. But if you want a Bodyguard effect, you're going to have cards with Bodyguard stapled onto them already.
Okay, and then we have Sunglasses. Draw a card, then choose and discard a card. Not sure how I feel about that card. Don't think it's that good.
I don't think it's that great either. It doesn't impact the board the turn it comes into play. If you can fix your hand for uninkables. So that is something to consider. Like I could see this being in like some sort of shell where you're like cheating this in. But outside of that, it's not going to be very good.
And then the last 2 locations for Steel are Treasure Mountain.
Oh, I desperately want this card to be good. This card breeds like so much fun. It is really slow though and really durdly, and you do need to support this card quite a bit. And it also is unequal. 9 willpower is really hard to beat.
Yeah, that's like the most one so far, right?
Yeah, but if you can stick a bunch of guys onto this treasure mountain and just like start nuking things into orbit, like that's just the dream. I want this card to be so good. I'm gonna build around this card. It's gonna be super duper fun. I don't know how good it's gonna be, but
you're gonna make it good, Ducky. I already know.
I hope so. I want it to be.
And then the last one we have is Galactic Council Chamber.
Yeah, so Galactic Council Chamber, although I have an alien or robot character here, this location can't be challenged.
Pretty good.
I don't know. Yeah, it's okay. I think, so like 3 mana locations that Quest for only run are going to be on the slightly weaker side. And the ability of this location can be challenged is a decent effect. You can also just like stick a cheap like alien or robot here. Actually, when I think about it, this could have potential.
Exactly, especially for like blue steel.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying.
And you just like sit on this and just like you sit and wait, and you just wait for your opponents to like to basically just like tick down and get wrecked.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I could definitely see like room for this card, especially since like you have a card like John Silver that scales off of this quite nicely. So
Yeah. Well, that is it for all of our set 6 cards. I'm very
yeah,
excited. I can't wait. And thank you so much for coming on, Ducky.
yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me on.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
All right, see ya. Oh wait, which
Oh,
Discord? Oh wait, so hold on, there's a question here.
yeah.
Ducky, which Discord do you usually frequent? Hey, I haven't had a lot of time to frequent a lot of Discords, but I'm usually in the 20 lore one, and then I'm also in the Lexicana one as well too.
It's Lux
So,
Academy now for our Metafy page.
yep.
Okay.
But yeah, you can always PM me on Discord as well too if you want to reach out to me.
Okay. Thank you, guys. Bye.
Thank you.